Hey guys, hey Chad.
GM.
GM. How are you guys doing?
Great, dude. It's been so warm out recently. It's mid-February, and at least here in New Jersey, it's been like 70. It's been like 60 or 70 out all week. I've been like outside all the time. It's great. Can't complain.
Nothing better than sun and touching some grass. That's awesome. Yeah, same over here. Without doxing too much, but yeah, love the good weather.
And then what's going on, Chad? Anything new with you?
No, not really. Just getting on.
Getting on. All right. Well, let's get started, I guess. So, first thing, like I guess we'll start with the Atom upgrade, the Gaia upgrade, which was successfully completed. Although I think there was some hiccups there. I think yeah, I guess there's some discrepancies with the published time of the hard fork and like when it actually happened. So I think like things were a little wonky, but it looks like everything's like upgraded and back to normal. So Atom is unpaused and uh, you know live again. So any notable like takeaways from that upgrade? Like there's some like minor like communications issues it seems like from the Atom core people, but nothing major.
Yeah, we looked at the time that was publicly announced about when it was going to happen, and we just kind of believed it and didn't really do the math ourselves in a sense, and that was probably the issue. Also, like times are like kind of a flexible concept within blockchains. Like each block is approximately more or less the same amount of time, but it can go longer or shorter depending upon like number of transactions it processes and other things. And so the time is never really like quite accurate. It's always like a general vicinity of.
So TLDR, it was just basically down a little bit longer than expected. I didn't even see exactly how long it was
I
out
think some
for.
nodes got slashed a bit. I think that was kind of the problem. It was causing
Uh,
some like weird issues because it was basically like the pause time was set for later than it should have been. So basically, like I think the chain was paused, but the validators were still trying to like continue processing blocks, and then it just wasn't happening, obviously. So I think that was the issue. So it's something similar to that. I mean, like not an issue from like for anyone else's perspective. So all good at this point. It looks like, and I think it was re-enabled. So uh, yeah, is there anything you want to say, Chad, about the UTXO pauses?
Um, well, there's really not much I can say at this point, unfortunately. There will come a time when we can discuss more openly, um, you know, what's going on. But for the interest of security, really can't go into any kind of detail at all, unfortunately. Hopefully, we'll do it. We can talk more about it, next week. But for right now, we have to keep things kind of on the quiet for security purposes.
Got it. And which chains does this affect? Which ones are paused right now?
Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Doge, I believe.
would it? Maybe this is too much details, but it doesn't affect Bitcoin. I mean, that's great.
Yes, correct. Does not affect Bitcoin. That's which is why that one's still on and run.
Sweet.
Yeah, I saw some people asking questions about that, so I wasn't sure if there was more details that were ready to be put out yet. As far as I know, this isn't a THORChain internal issue. This is a external uh, chain issue, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And as soon as like some things are disclosed publicly later on, not by us but other people, we can talk more in detail about it and that kind of stuff. But until then, we have to keep things on the down low.
All right. So yeah, hopefully that's sooner rather than later. because I have seen people asking about the chains. So I guess once the security concerns are alleviated and that those are addressed by the other teams, then we can move on with that. Because I've seen a couple comments asking like, when's Bitcoin Cash trading coming back? Actually, I've seen people asking about all three, which is probably actually a good sign. Seeing that people are actually wondering when trading is coming back, it means people are trying to make use of that and actually make swaps and maybe some savers in there that want some yield. So there are
Yeah,
actual users that want to use these chains and things like that, and they're asking for them back. So once the concerns are alleviated, then we can get back to it.
yeah, 100%. Just waiting for some things to happen first before we can do so.
Cool. So next up, I guess, raise the caps. Let's talk a little bit about the process that's going to happen to get the savers caps up, because I think a lot of people are kind of holding their breath, just waiting for that. And the node vote just passed, I guess, this morning, so it should be raised really any time now. So yeah, you want to go into a little bit about just the process of raising the caps and like what's going to happen with POL and synthetic asset utilization and everything that we've been talking about for a while now, because it looks like it's finally like right there on the cusp.
Yeah, it's getting there. So we're raising the caps now. I think the ultimate goal is to raise the caps to either like 55 or 60%, and allow the POL to start adding liquidity at 50% and then withdraw liquidity at 40%. And so that'll be the first time we're enabling POL for the network. And when we do so, like we'll purposely limit the amount of room that the POL is allowed to use from the reserve, just to make sure that we don't due to some bug or something like that, like just dump 100 million rune or something crazy, which wouldn't happen, but just to be on the safer side. So we wanted to start with a small amount to begin with, let it, deploy that amount of rune, just make sure it gets deployed in a way that's, expected and doesn't cause any problems or anything like this, no surprises. And assuming that that's good, we can, start to bump up that number and allow the people to take a larger and larger position in the pools. We'd probably only actually, do it for the Bitcoin pool, because the other ones aren't close enough to my knowledge, off the top of my head, to warrant that people have to get engaged. But that might change over the future. It probably will.
Yeah, but short term, it's just going to be Bitcoin to start, because that's the only one that's at the synth cap currently. So it kind of looks like Ether is kind of creeping its way up there, especially with the launch on Shapeshift and their interface. Been seeing some deposits there. There's actually a chart the other day that was floating around that they put out about how much was deposited through their interface, and things are looking good on that front, getting liquidity in things other than Bitcoin, but rolling out on Bitcoin initially. Anything else close right now?
Well, I'm excited to get like Bitcoin running again in terms of like people to add more liquidity.
Oh yeah.
And the Shapeshift UI hasn't really seen the Bitcoin pool available yet, right? Because they launched it at a time when we already hit the caps, and so all they could do is like Ethereum and other smaller assets. So I'd be interesting to see once we actually raise the caps from 30% to 50% or 60%, whatever the number's going to be, to start to see like Bitcoin start to grow again and get deeper into more liquidity and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people from Shapeshift been asking about the Bitcoin vaults, and it'd be really nice to especially go to ETH Denver or something like that with not an empty Bitcoin vault, with space in the Bitcoin vaults, and being able to onboard some more people from that perspective.
Yeah, and once we actually get the POL enabled at 50%, then the synth cap at that point doesn't really matter so much. Maybe it does in some kind of extreme scenarios, but it doesn't matter if the synth cap's at 55%, 60%, or 90%, because the POL would always just keep on pushing the synth utilization down to 50%. right? So it really
Yep.
doesn't matter so much of the synth cap is at that point for the most part, unless the POL is unable to add more liquidity, either because it runs out of room to be able to deploy because of the cap it putting in artificially, or runs out of room in reserve itself, that's never going to happen, or at least not for at least like 30 plus years, something like this. And then, or the hard cap is hit, and the POL can't add more liquidity because the hard cap has been hit for the first time in the history of our chain here. So, the synth utilization after the point of 50%, like, really doesn't matter so much. You still want to do it a little bit higher. You could do it at 51% if you really wanted to, but it's probably just smoother to do 55 or 60 or something like that, just because it gives more buffer. It gives the POL more time to adjust to a price change between Rune and the asset.
So those are kind of two independent things. Then there's like the synth cap, which can just be higher, but then the POL, like where it modulates to balance. I remember we were discussing this weeks back. Like, does it like is it 45% to 55%? At what point does it kind of like start buying and start selling? So has that aspect been nailed down?
Yeah, for the most part, I think there's general agreement between at least the devs, between the OG team and the Nine Realms team. And I think the intention is that the POL will start adding liquidity when it hits 50% synth utilization, and then it'll withdraw liquidity once it hits 40% synth utilization. So there's like a 10% little buffer kind of in the middle there, and that's just there just to make sure that the POL doesn't like thrash the pools that much and just like constantly be adding and withdrawing, adding, withdrawing, adding, withdrawing, like back and forth. I mean, it wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing if that did happen. It wouldn't be like the end of the world or anything. But what it would mean is that it would kind of bloat the chain and add more transactions in a sense, in a matter of speaking, and cause more like data in per block, which could bloat the chain, and it also could cause some slippage for the reserve, right? Because the reserve's adding a single sided liquidity as a dual sider, and so depending upon the quantity or the size of the deposit or withdraw, you're going to get some kind of slippage between those two things. So if you don't want to keep on adding and keep on withdrawing, like back and forth, like thrashing the pool in a sense, because you're just going to slowly bleed yourself in some ways, the amount of rune that it's supposed to deploy should be a small amount, and so we shouldn't really see that much of a slippage, because it's going to just kind of leak a small amount of rune in or a small amount out. But that's one of the things that I want to pay attention to when we actually launch the POL, is to see, like, how much rune is being added on a per ad scenario, and make sure that number is not like too high, that causes too high of a slippage for the reserve.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool.
Yeah, I've also seen people talking about the buffer being somewhere around like 5%, basically having it add liquidity when synth utilization hits 55% and remove when it hits 45%. So I don't think there's a huge difference in it being like 5 or 10%. It just depends on where you want the POL to add and remove liquidity. So if your target is 50, then it can add at 55 and remove at 45, and keep it bouncing around 50%. Or Chad, do you think there's a huge difference of it, being have the targeted rate being at like 45 and 50 and a 10% or a 10% buffer and a 5% buffer? Or are those just like pretty small differences?
The buffer matters less in some sense. A larger buffer means that you would thrash the pool less, and so statistically speaking, a sudden price change in rune upward or downward relative to the asset would be less likely to add or remove liquidity because the buffer is larger, right? Just from a mathematical probabilistic perspective. It doesn't really matter that much, but the one area where it does matter is that when the network is, say the POL started adding liquidity at a lower percentage, say it was like 30% or something like this, or 20%, something like that. And so every time, if like $1 of savers goes into the pool, because the synth utilization or the target synth utilization is below 50%, you have to put in more rune than you have to, then like, maybe $2 worth of rune. I'm not sure the exact numbers off my head, but I have to do the math. But so say if someone puts $1 of savings, that creates, effectively 50 cents buy pressure on the rune asset inherently. And then when the POL adds, $2 of rune, it's creating basically like $1 of sell pressure. So there's a net negative of 50 cents in that hypothetical. And so, but the inverse is true if you do above. So if the centralization is not at 30%, it's at like, say it's at 70% or 80%, something like this, and you start adding liquidity, you are going to be, adding $1 worth of savers, and you're going to be adding, 50 cents worth of rune. So you create a net buy pressure, right? But in that same hypothetical at 80% or 70%, and we're doing a withdraw at that point, you're actually going to create a net negative. So so if you think about it another way, is like saying that if the synchronization is at 50% and we're adding or withdrawing, it's like a dead even, Steven, no reflexivity, no net buy or sell pressure on the rune asset. And if the synchronization is below that and you're adding liquidity, you're creating a net sell pressure on the rune asset. And if you're withdrawing under 50%, you're creating a net positive or net buy pressure. And then conversely, if the synchronization is at 70 or 80%, above 50%, when you're adding liquidity, you're net positive, and then when you're minusing at 70%, you're net negative. And so there's a little bit of like kind of a chart that you could kind of grow, like a draw, like a table or something like this. And so because the network is going to be adding liquidity at 50%, it's a even Steven, no reflexivity. But because it's withdrawing at 40%, there's going to be a net positive on the rune, buy pressure, right? Or there's more buy pressure than there's going to be sell pressure when you're withdrawing at 40%. So technically speaking, if we were to do what you were just saying, Kyle, and just like put it at like 55% to add and 45% to withdraw, then technically there'd be a very small, it's not that much, it'd be a very small amount of buy pressure when you're adding liquidity, a very small amount of pressure, of buy pressure when you're withdrawing liquidity in both scenarios, because you're adding when it's above 50 and you're withdrawing when it's below 50. And so you can create a positive reflexivity in both directions when you're adding and removing. But then again, like if at 55%, it's like basically nothing. It's not really a significant number. So nobody should get too excited about that.
Cool. Thanks for that explanation, Chad. I brought up Jimmy. Hey, Jimmy, do you have a question?
Yeah. No, I'm here to ask about how this community continues supporting THORChain. I'm a THORChain maxi, THORChain soldier, and I'm organizing some THORChain special forces. I need our special forces commando. As this war against other projects continues, the THORChain is on top.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Let's go. You cut out a little there in the middle, so not quite sure I got the full message, but I think I got the gist.
I like Jimmy's Twitter icon, because he's got got Mjolnir in there. The hammer.
Yeah, it's not so much about what he said; it's about how he said it. It's about the spirit of the of the speaker.
Exactly.
Jimmy's
Big hammer.
Jimmy's one of my favorite people on Spaces. One of the funniest guys in the industry here.
I don't think Jimmy's been up with us before. I don't think he's ever been on this space before, has he?
I think so. Haven't you, Jimmy?
He stepped down, but yeah, I remember him. I think that's a different profile picture, but I remember him.
Cool. All right. I thought it was probably a POL question, but that works too. Cool. So yeah, so I think we'll see synth being bumped like real soon, up to 50%. So that means there's going to be immediate space for Bitcoin savers, and I think that'll happen very, very soon, because the vote already passed. We just need admin Amir to lock it in, and then we can start on this path of more savers, more POL, just increasing that liquidity, and yeah, we're gonna make swap fees better with the greater liquidity, and yeah, hopefully everything works out well with POL. Like, start out small at the beginning and monitor it, and make sure things are growing in a sustainable way and there's no problems. And yeah, looking forward to seeing how this is going to go.
LFG.
LFG.
Should we open up to the audience and see anybody got any questions or comments they want to
Yeah,
say?
got Rune Wolf, and yeah, if anyone else has questions about just anything, just needs to be about POL or whatever, just feel free to come on up and ask.
Yeah, since the last guy
Hey.
didn't ask the POL question, I will. Just to make sure that I understood this correctly. So when the cap is raised to 50, the POL will be activated. It's the same thing, or are those two things separate and POL might come later?
Two separate things. They need to be activated separately. They're both merged in POL is in the code, right, Chad? It's ready to be activated. All it needs but it's a separate switch
Correct.
that needs to be flipped in order to activate it.
So
Correct, yeah.
the vote has only been done for the cap and not for the POL.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm not entirely quite confident of this myself, but I think there might be a symbolic vote by the nodes to enable POL, and then it becomes a debate about like how that should be enabled. Like for some people, like there's basically three options to think about. One is do nothing, don't enable the POL, vote down the whole concept. Number two is we only enable POL for specific pools that might be Bitcoin and Ether, for example. Or number three is we enable it for all the all the savers assets, which is like all the gas assets, the primary assets per chain. And I think that's going to be something that the community is going to have to talk about, and the validators are going to have to kind of mull over and think about what they think should happen. My personal view is that we should just enable it for all gas assets personally. That's my 2 cents. But we're probably going to be having debates about this in the Discord and other places pretty soon.
So that's going to have to happen like kind of right away, right? Because we don't want to be sitting at a 50% cap without POL activation, right? Just in case like crazy price action, then it goes past 50. There's no like kind of safeguard there.
That's what I thought. Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. It's something I've been talking with the devs about, but I mean, it's not that I wouldn't be too worried about that scenario, just because we're already in the bear market, and you would need to see at a 50% centralization, you would need to see basically a 4x price change of either Bitcoin going up 4x or Rune going down 4x, or a combination of those two things in order to get into any kind of real trouble in a sense. But part of the point or the purpose of the POL, in my view, is that it's playing the the bodyguard of the dual side LPs in a sense. So if Rune's price is not performing so well relative to Bitcoin, for example, centralization will go up, which increases the amount of like leverage Rune position that the dual side LPs are taking on. And so the POL is supposed to kind of keep it to a reasonable level, which is approximately 50%. So I hope we'll vote on that fairly quickly after we get to the synth cap. But we can enable the synth cap today or whatever, or tomorrow or whatever, and then start talking about, because we're not going to get to close to 50% in the next few days. It would probably take a couple of weeks or so before we actually get to 50% centralization on like Bitcoin and so forth. So we have time. So I'm not terribly worried about it, but I definitely would advise to the community to enable the POL on, in my opinion, all the gas assets sooner rather than later.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't think anyone is suggesting going up 50% and then deciding what to do. Like these are all kind of being worked on concurrently. So I think the plan is coming together right now for the POL, and then it'll basically be refined over the next couple of weeks is kind of how I picture it going. And then once we are close to that POL target number, where we figure out exactly what values we want to target and how exactly the implementation is, there's probably going to be like a couple of weeks leading up to that, because that means we need to fill up another 20% of the caps with more savers entering into the pool. So there's probably going to be a few week buffer, I would think, between when the caps are raised and when POL is actually activated. I guess it really depends on the rate that people deposit into the savers vaults and drive up the synth utilization rate.
Yeah, it depends how many people are waiting to beat down the doors and get their Bitcoin in.
And by the way, like seeing a 4x price change in is like would be extremely unlikely to happen. Even when THORChain had its exploits in the early days, about a year and a half ago, where it was, the price change we saw relative to Bitcoin was like 3.3, I think it was, of a price change. It wasn't even 4, even in that extreme scenario of like multiple exploits pausing the network, like that kind of dark time, if you want to call it that. So I'm really not terribly concerned in this scenario. We have seen historically the runes price go down greater than 4x. The only time we've seen that from what I was doing some research is when we went from the bull market where Bitcoin was at 60K, the rune was at like 20 or 21 bucks, and we went from 60K down to 20K on Bitcoin, and we went from 20 or $21 down to $1. And at that point, I think that was about a 6.6, something like this, 6.3, something around there. And so that would be a higher, obviously, price shift in that scenario. But obviously, we're not going to go into the bull market and the bear market, in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So I'm not terribly worried about it.
that was over months as well. I mean, many months, really.
Yeah. So I'm not terribly
Yeah.
concerned at this moment in time about being at 50% utilization. I would definitely wouldn't want to sit there and kind of twiddle my thumbs in a sense, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't freak out if something like that were to happen.
I think it only becomes a concern if it just starts filling up super fast or like faster than expected. Like if it was at 45% and we still hadn't like got anywhere, then it's like, okay, we're like really getting close to the finish line here. But
yeah, I think
most
everyone
likely we have
knows
time.
that we need to be once we get to that synth utilization, we need to be at a decision for POL. So I think if for some reason it did fill up very quickly, that would just prompt people to act more quickly and to make a decision more quickly rather than debating it more and letting it stew a bit and talking about it more. I think that would just prompt more action. So I think even if it did fill up quickly, it wouldn't necessarily be a problem. I think it would just mean we would just need to act quicker.
Also,
I think everyone knows what the stakes are there.
Also, I think if you're a node operator that voted for 50%, you're basically symbolically voting for POL, right? Because I don't think anyone really wants 50% synth utilization and not POL, right? So I think it's kind of implied.
Like when we actually were designing synthetics in general many years ago, myself and somebody else, and when we were actually doing the math of how risky are synths in general, and at that time we were only thinking about synths as the only demand center for synths was going to be just arbitraging the pools and such, and so you don't need 50% synth utilization to arbitrage the pool. You only really need 10 or 15% per se, right? So, and at that low of a percentage, it's really not much of a risk there at all because it require at 50%, it'd be probably close to a 13 or 15x price change, which would be the biggest thing we've ever seen in Rune's history by landslide. So it just didn't seem like there was really something to be terribly concerned about at that small utilization. But then, of course, once we started to find another demand center for synths, which is the savers concept, obviously that can go from 10 or 15% to considerably higher. Technically, we could put synthesization at 100%. Not that we should do that or will do that, but it would probably be utilized. You know what I mean, or at least up until the hard cap. So when our initial math of analyzing the risk of synths, we felt it was quite low initially, but then we added savers, and so that kind of changes the perspective. So initially, I wasn't even going to vote. I actually didn't even want to do a vote on POL personally. And just if we get the synth cap to 50% or 60% or somewhere between, then Mimir admin would just enable POL in the best interest of the network and its reliability. But Nairam I think was kind of pushing for having a community vote on the POL separately, and I wasn't going to fight with that or anything like that.
Yeah, I would really doubt there's anyone that's seriously, campaigning to enable synth at 50% and no POL. I haven't seen anyone that expressed that. I think it's just minor differences about how to deploy POL, and it's just actually having some kind of, I don't know, about vote or discussion around just how to actually do it, not actually whether to do it or not. I think everyone's kind of aligned there.
Right. I
Totally.
think everybody's agrees. Sorry, go ahead, Chad.
No, I was just gonna say, and at the same time, it's kind of good to do it this way because that's just a more decentralized way of making these decisions and making changes in the network versus just like flipping the admin switch. So even though everyone's in agreement, I understand like the push to kind of like do it the proper have that flow of votes and all of that to make it happen.
Yeah, I think the debate really is about, which pools does this get enabled or not, right? And I think on the one hand, somebody might argue that by enabling the POL on like a smaller asset, like take Litecoin for example, which got a decent amount of savers in there relative to its pool size, and if Litecoin were to pump 10x or something like that tomorrow, then that could cause a problem in terms of POL, whatever. I mean, not in my opinion. I think some people might argue that, but not so much in my opinion. If Litecoin pumps 10x or something like this or whatever, then that would mean that the POL slash the reserve would earn like a lot of money because, of course, the POL is taking a position in the pool, therefore it's owning, Litecoin as well as Rune and it's kind of like portfolio, right? And so if Litecoin pumps 10x, then the POL does well, right? And it performs well in that scenario. We might have to pump more Rune into the pools to kind of help cover the dual side LPs and such, but that's not really a big deal, especially in these smaller pools like Litecoin and Doge and whatever, like probably even Dash. Like the depth of liquidity is so small that even if things go south in some way, shape, or form, like the amount of losses the reserve would actually experience is relatively small because the pools are relatively small. Obviously, that's different for Ethereum and Bitcoin, but those are obviously much larger market cap assets, and so the likelihood of it going 10x up or 10x down is relatively small, especially relative to Rune's ability to move up or down or whatever. So it's like the larger the market cap, thus in some ways you could argue things get safer, and you could argue the things that don't get safer because in a larger market cap asset you're going to have less volatility, which means those pools are going to have more impermanent loss, which means the reserve is going to take on more IL in the larger market cap pool. It's just that's why we see, like, if you look at impermanent loss protection, for example, like Bitcoin is the largest pool, I think, or at least is, because that's just if you exclude the actual stablecoins themselves. And so it's like it becomes an interesting conversation debate, but my personal stance is enable for all the pools at the same for the protocol network and be net positive for reserve mapping.
I don't know if it was cutting out for anyone else at the end there. Chad, did you hear the end of that?
Yeah, just at the very end, it
Okay.
got a little like sped up sounding for me. Looks like he's reconnecting, but yeah, basically just saying that he's in favor of enabling it for all the savers assets, not just Bitcoin.
Cool. Yep. Makes sense. Let me bring him back up. And we have a Alchemist here. Also, I see DeFi Spot in the audience. I know they've been like shipping like crazy the past couple days and have a lot of plans to ship a lot of new aggregators to new chains. Today they just released a Polygon aggregator that uses THORChain in the middle. I didn't test it out with any swaps, but I did some swap estimations and checked how much the slippage was from like Bitcoin to like USDC on Polygon, and like slippage is pretty nice, and just more routes opening up. So actually, pretty cool. So if I don't know if they're like on mobile or whatever, but if you guys want to come up and share anything, then it'd be cool. Otherwise, we'll bring up Alchemist while we try and get Chad back online.
Hey guys. I'm really excited for POL and the next phase about to kick off in the next few weeks. But I'm even more excited about some alpha that I think just dropped briefly in the Discord. I think there might be a NFT marketplace for Bitcoin NFTs dropping, built on top of THORChain by one of, I don't know if it's DeFi Spot or it's THORSwap team. I'm not asking if it is true or not, but let's assume it's true. And I'm really excited for that to happen. It would really complete the the ecosystem, the THORChain ecosystem. So I would like to hear you guys discuss, what the potential possibilities are if that drops. That's my question.
Wait 1 sec. I'm figuring out if I banned Chad from this space or not, or if I just removed him.
Devs are sleeping. Let's have a party.
Sorry, Chad, do you want to talk about this for a second while I try and figure this out?
I was also a little bit distracted by the messages with Chad. Well, there's the question about BS.
Yes, it's about using THORChain basically as a liquidity source to basically do cross-chain NFT trades, which is totally possible. I posted about this in the Discord the other week, just with basically what prompted this idea is a lot of people are trading ordinals and things like that, and how they're actually doing it is they're wrapping it on using emblem vaults. They're wrapping it onto Ethereum. So they're actually so it's a Bitcoin ordinal, and they're putting it into a emblem vault, wrapping it, putting it onto Ethereum, and then selling it on OpenSea, which is just like kind of crazy to me that people are doing that, and especially in such large numbers. So this has been an idea that's been said for a long time now, and it's using the DEX aggregator on THORChain, and you can use the DEX aggregator not only for cross-chain, AMM swaps, like using Uniswap or Pangolin or something like that. You could even do it with your own custom contracts, and you could have that deposited into OpenSea's API. So you could actually use THORChain to purchase an Ethereum NFT, for example, using Bitcoin, using the DEX aggregator on THORChain. So I really do hope someone is building this out, because I think it's an interesting project idea. I think that it was a little bit weaker in the past because, why would you want to buy your NFT with Bitcoin when you could just buy it with Ether, right? It's not really that big of a deal. But now that people are trading these Bitcoin NFTs, as you could say, I guess, there does seem to be increased demand to actually do this. So I actually do see there being a larger market and for this type of activity. So it would be really cool if someone could actually put that together. I don't know if anyone is actually doing this or not. I put out the plan of how to actually do that. The contracts that would be required to actually make something like that, at least from my view. And hopefully we see something like that, and we can see THORChain just powering more and more cross-chain liquidity.
It's probably too soon to say any details, but I know there are definitely at least one team that's looking at this for sure. And I'm not sure about the Bitcoin ordinance stuff. I haven't dug into that really. I'm not sure if that's covered in it, but definitely something being explored is the NFT aggregation. Buy NFT on chain.
Oh God, I'm gonna fucking come. Oh God, I'm gonna fucking come so hard.
Okay, let me block and remove. He must have been looking at the rune chart, I think.
All right. Sorry about that.
Just a brief intermission there.
And OpenAI is not going to like this transcript once I send them the video.
Twitter's THORChain Spaces rated XXX. At least he didn't pin any tweets with weird stuff. I've seen that that happened on a THORSwap space once too. And people, I don't know what people are doing.
I didn't know you could do that.
Well, when you get up on stage, you can pin any tweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes a spammer just starts pinning a bunch of whatever. Yeah,
so so you couldn't actually use THORChain to trade the ordinals themselves as it's currently configured, just because it's its own thing. But you could actually use THORChain as a liquidity source to you could use it to say make a contract to give your NFT to that contract. It lists it on whatever service, and then whenever it sells, it just pays you out in Bitcoin. Or you could configure it so that way you can buy whatever NFT on whatever chain with Bitcoin or whatever coin is supported on THORChain. All that's completely possible. So just waiting for that thing to be built. That was just an idea that was posted around, and I guess someone is potentially building it. I'm looking forward to seeing when that happens. Just more and more options and more like use cases for people actually using THORChain just for whatever their general purposes. It seems like the perfect like actual use for the protocol, besides just being in like the regular like wallets and dexes, just being a little bit more creative, but without like having to expand the footprint of THORChain too much in its capabilities. It's all possible with like what's available today on the network.
Exactly, 100%. I mean, that's really the goal. Like, speaking from the THORSwap side for a second, but just with like the API integrations and just having like this full complete package. So expanding that offering such that it is like, it's not just for dexes or it's not just for wallets, but really there's like so many potential use cases, whether it's like this NFT topic or payments. You can really go down the list and have a lot of potential use cases for THORChain backend, and especially with aggregation, because then you get in any token, of course, and like a lot of the cases it's like the project's token and that's important to them. So yeah, there's a lot of angles with it.
Right. Yeah, that payments angle is huge. That's my other like free idea, which is by no means free, but you could steal the idea and use it. But actually building it out will take a lot of work. But this other idea that I've just been waiting for someone to build, being a cross-chain payments platform where it basically it'd be similar to that NFT like idea, where basically you pay with any asset and the merchant can receive any asset. You could maybe do something like issuing invoices, and the buyer can pay in any asset and the seller can receive the asset that they want, probably stable coin, and the buyer can pay with whatever they want. And you could use THORChain for that backend to make all of those swaps happen. But a lot of things need to be like, there's probably a lot more things that need to be like, that is a lot more complex than just building like an NFT aggregator or something like that. And so it's something that there's a lot of competition in already, especially with centralized exchanges, probably something like Coinbase Pay or like Binance Pay or whatever those decentralized services are that can offer like price guarantees and things like that. But I think that's another interesting like way to explore THORChain in a use case that's not already currently being used.
Yeah, I love that idea, and there's definitely some partners on the roster of potential partners that we're in talks with and stuff that are kind of in this space. And a lot of like the work the THORSwap devs are doing are kind of on exactly that, like the expected quotes and like all these sort of things to like guarantee the best possible quoting, because that stuff is so important if you're like trying to get another asset than what especially when it's like aggregation too, and it's not even just THORChain. So there's a lot of like steps to like ensure that the proper output is quoted, because there's not really any room for error if you're like trying to do some sort of like commerce. So yeah.
The other major problem I think of is the minimums, like because you're operating all on chain. You couldn't just go to the I don't know, the convenience store and buy a bag of chips for $1, right? If you pay in Bitcoin, like it's just not going to work like that. Just because of all the fees that are involved, because you need to pay decentralized actors. You don't need to really pay Coinbase that much to use a little bit of their liquidity to process some real life transactions. So, it is very different. Like something like that would need to be scoped out a lot. But yeah, just another cool idea there.
Absolutely, yeah, that's true. But there's definitely a lot of use cases for payments that are not like $2. Like even like salaries or buying obviously anything that's like let's say $100 plus or something like that. Then the fee is going to be less important, especially of course as like liquidity gets deeper and slippage gets less. Then
salaries is a very interesting idea that I hadn't thought of previously. Actually, especially with all these DAO management tools, I'm sure there's people in DAOs that want to get paid in in native Bitcoin. That is a very interesting angle that I haven't thought of before.
Yeah, somebody should spin that up.
All right, no, yeah, that's in the idea space now. Interesting, very cool. So, yeah, anyone else want to come up and ask questions? And I hope I answered yours, Alchemist. And if you have any more, feel free. But Chad's gone, so you know, we'll stay up as long as there's someone here that just wants to ask something about, I don't know, POL, savers, anything else that's going on in the ecosystem. I guess while we're waiting to see if anyone else is going to come up, I'll say again that we're going to be at ETH Denver, and Nine Realms is helping sponsor a booth with Shapeshift. So THORChain is going to be there at ETH Denver doing some stuff. So we're going to be doing a lot of stuff with Shapeshift, and no solid plan, but if you're going to be there, definitely reach out and we'll let you know like where we're going to be. Kind of playing it by ear and just like seeing who we can meet there and who wants this cross-chain liquidity. I'm sure a lot of people's minds are going to be blown by the fact that you can even do this. People whose heads are off in EVM land right now. So yeah, looking forward to that opportunity. It's coming in like 2 weeks, I think, at this point. So it's right around the corner here. So looking forward to that one. And just furthering our partnership with Shapeshift, because Shapeshift and THORChain are they're just so synergistic, and just more partnerships like this are always going to be good, and being able to work with other very motivated actors in this space who share the same values.
100%. Yeah, I love the Shapeshift team and just like the origin story, and it's just a great project all around. So yeah, it's great to see like obviously the synergy has been there all along, but it feels like recently with savers and all of that kind of like kicked it into high gear.
All right, no one else requesting, so I guess I'll just shout out DeFi Spot one more time, because they've been shipping all these aggregator implementations, and from what they say, it seems like one every single day for the next however many days. The next, is it 90 days? You guys are there can't be that many aggregators, are there? I can't. I'm trying to look at how many aggregators DeFi Spot's going to ship. I don't see it, but it does seem like they're shipping a ton of different aggregators. So I would definitely check out DeFi Spot, check out their aggregator, and yeah, I'm looking forward to see what other chains you guys are going to implement. More and more aggregator implementations are like, huge thumbs up from here. So keep building, guys. I guess lastly, there's some website updates. That's really it. Just like something else I've just been working on myself. So definitely check that out. THORChain.org is the content that was on THORChain.com is now on THORChain.org. They're married to each other now. So just been pushing a lot of updates to that website. There's some more pending changes that are gonna roll out soon, hopefully today. So yeah, if people have suggestions to the website, like, or just for anything, you can always feel free to DM the THORChain account, and someone will read it. And we do take feedback seriously, and want to make our website the best it can be. So if there's any feedback on that, then always feel free to shoot someone a line. And yeah, DeFi Spot says 60 new chains in 60 days, which seems absolutely insane. I hope you guys can pull it off. That would be incredible if we saw 60 chains in 60 days. Damn, that's gonna lead us into like April. Very cool.
Cool. Well, I guess probably just keep it tight today then. Should we just wrap up?
Yeah, let's wrap it. All right. See you guys. Next Friday, actually there may or may not be a space. I guess we'll figure this out. And hopefully we can get Chad unbanned from Twitter Spaces and get him on here.
You like permanently banned him? It's like,
No, I removed him from the space. I'm like 90% sure I didn't ban him, but I guess he can't join back. So I don't know what's going on. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Oh well.
Next week. Then in 2 weeks will be Denver, so there probably won't be one in 2 weeks, but there should be one next week. So yeah.
Cool.
All right.
And yeah, people can check the recordings. You're gonna put it up on the Nine Realms YouTube. And
Yep, Nine Realms
yep.
YouTube. And if you guys didn't know, I also use OpenAI to generate a transcript for it. So if you don't want to listen to these things, because I know they get like super long, and not everyone has time or energy to do this. If you want to know what's going on without listening to it, someone has been uploading the like a summary of it. I think it's Rect0x has been doing that. I've been retweeting them. And also on the YouTube, I upload a transcript generated by OpenAI, so you can just, if you wanted to just like scrub and find the content you're looking for without listening to the whole thing, then you can easily do that. Just trying to make things easier for people rather than having to listen to this, sometimes long podcast every single week to know what's going on with THORChain. So sweet. All right, Chad.
All
Peace,
right.
man.
See ya.